Well, Sam, thank you so much for hopping on this webinar today. You and I met, what is it now? It's probably like 4 months ago.
About 4 months, yeah.
Yeah, and we had this really great nerdy conversation about the job search and personal branding and applicant tracking systems and ATSs. And I just thought, this is a super enthusiastic, knowledgeable, giving person. Let's hop on a webinar and share this with the world.
I will try to live up to that personal brand and reputation. Um, depending, depending on which label, I may use those terms loosely over here. We'll try to provide some real value today.
Cool. Great. So before we dig in, I'm going to give a quick overview of JobStep, why we hold these webinars, and then let Sam introduce himself, and then we can go into kind of a set of questions that he and I have kind of talked about, and then we can open it up for any additional audience questions. So hello, everyone. My name is Eleanor Meegoda. I'm the CEO and co-founder of JobStep. We're a technology company whose mission is to break down barriers into growing careers, particularly in tech. And one of the ways that we do that is by having wonderful events like these with great people like Sam that raise awareness of some of the fastest growing roles in tech, like marketing, and how to get into them. That's kind of our evening business, if you will. Our full-time job is we provide what we hope is the fastest and easiest way to get a better job. And we do that by pairing the expertise of great coaches with technology that matches, finds, and applies to great jobs for our job seekers. So I'm very excited to kick off this conversation with Sam Frymer, career coach and marketing leader. So we talk about personal branding, marketing careers, how to shift from freelance into full-time, and maybe we even talk about TikTok resumes. Who knows?
We got time. I would love to throw a TikTok log on the fire today,
Yeah.
Eleanor.
Cool. So before we get started, Sam, would you mind sharing a quick introduction of yourself and how you got into marketing, how you got into career coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey everyone, Sam Frymer here. Frymer, like French fries. Super stoked to be here. Thank you, Eleanor, for helping give me this platform today and having a real chat. So it's funny, like I've been in the game for like 15 years now, and I think like way back to like when I started my career, like a long time in retail, and I moved to corporate, doing more with computers, and eventually on a trek out west. When I was in procurement, I first started doing like marketing projects. And it's interesting, like I had always thought about marketing as like this big like Coca-Cola commercial. And
Yeah.
yes, there is that like part like big brands and like PR and a Super Bowl commercial and stuff like that. But what I was doing was working for a small company, and I really started marketing like internally, where you had to kind of sell or market to your salespeople first, and then they would go out and sell it to the world. And it happened to be in the food service industry. That's my very first taste, pun intended, of going into marketing. And fast forward, fast forward a decade and a half, and now I do marketing in healthcare tech. And I think it just made me think of kind of that path. That route is not a linear thing, particularly in marketing where things change so quickly, strategy, tactics, your tech stack. The marketing path looks a lot like this. It's not always, associate manager, director, VP, CMO. There's lots of twists and turns, and my career has done that as well. For career coaching, or more specifically resume rebuilds, again, almost got into that by accident. So obviously the pandemic hits and people are like, oh crap, what do we do? And there's a Boston-based company called EasyCater that was one of like the first companies to say, hey, like we lost 90% of our business overnight, right? So I put up a LinkedIn post saying, hey, don't fret, we got your back. If you need like a resume review or a LinkedIn profile review, ping me, I'll do it for free. no questions asked, no fee, just ping me. And my inbox got flooded. And that act, uh, excuse me, that was kind of where I cut my teeth for career coaching or helping people find roles, is by going through a plethora of resumes. And that was kind of my reps, and it kind of grew from there.
Yeah, super giving. What did I tell you? Sam is one of the most generous people I've met. That is awesome. Um, that's really cool. I didn't realize that you had jumped from a buyer procurement role into marketing, and your first role was kind of marketing salespeople. That's so interesting. And then, and now you're in kind of healthcare. I guess with the eye of kind of giving advice to people who are breaking into marketing from different industries, what was one of the first skills or kind of contextual things, or just like ways of thinking about marketing that you had to learn to that really set you up to make this transition?
Yeah, I mean, when I moved back east and I started doing what more traditional marketing looks like, with content, nowadays content creation and managing social accounts for a business,
Yeah.
versus my own Facebook page. I had to really kind of jump in head first. Back then, I was reading blog posts, watching YouTube videos, kind of your how-tos. In terms of specific skills, modern marketing, you're using a tech stack. In my day-to-day, that's a platform like HubSpot.
Mhm.
There's ones like Marketo or uh, Constant Contact, a whole variety. But I would recommend jumping right into software, where you can both learn technical skills,
Mhm.
but also you can learn how to execute a campaign. There's a million and one buckets under that marketing umbrella: content, PR, demand gen, corporate comms, ops. There's lots of different skills there, and you kind of get a taste. That's a theme I didn't know early on in my career. Like, you're not pigeonholed into one,
Mhm.
but the software kind of runs the gamut across all of them.
When you
Um,
say software, you mean jumping into a software company where you can do all of those things? Is that what you mean?
you can, well, not quite. I mean, more using that,
Yeah.
leveraging that
Yeah.
software.
Okay.
It's funny when I say it out loud, like it's all organized in my head.
Yeah.
When I say it out loud, like I gotta like organize my thoughts. Um, yeah, when you're using these modern tools,
Mhm.
regardless of industry, and a lot of times regardless of function, you gotta upgrade your quiver, and use the current tools of today, and
Yeah.
jump in head first.
Yeah. Okay, that is a great tip. So just being willing to jump into a new software, dig into it, seeing what it's capable of. That's awesome. Um, what um what are so if there's to your point, there's so many different types of software, and there's so many, and then at the same time, as a marketing person, there's so many different ways to focus, but you also kind of want to have that broad trend. You mentioned HubSpot. Is that the tool that you recommend someone who's thinking about making the same transition you made, 10, 15 years ago? um, would you recommend they go to HubSpot, or take a HubSpot certification, or Google Analytics, or Active Campaign, MailChimp? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so I'm a bit biased. Like, I love HubSpot, so they would definitely be a great stop. You won't be disappointed. You touched on a really good point on something that I would unpack further, is just going into this with the mentality of a lifelong student. So, like,
Mm.
HubSpot offers certifications in inbound marketing, and email, and social, and growth driven design, and how sales enablement, or how kind of marketing sales interact, all for free. So if I've never done a marketing day in my life, and I'm like, hey, some of those topics look really interesting to me, I can go get certifications, or
Mhm.
uh, uh, those other platforms you mentioned as well. I can go do online courses and really start building some marketing muscle.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Um, I love that phrase, a lifelong student, lifelong curiosity, and taking advantage of these free courses. That's awesome.
Yeah, someone, and I would just add a footnote there, Eleanor. I
Yeah.
actually saw this LinkedIn post recently where someone had mentioned no matter like marketing or otherwise, if you want to start out, literally start researching those topics and start putting together content, maybe 50 blog posts. And when you're done doing all that learning, all that processing, like explaining, it's like you've up leveled or upskilled or upgraded like your marketing chops.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a really good foundation to when you're doing the real thing and you jump into that new role tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have a better base there.
Yeah. When you say 50 blog posts, I'm sure some people go, oh shoot, that is a lot of blog posts to kind of get practice. And is that, when, how competitive, this kind of brings me to another question, is just how competitive is it to break into marketing? How good do you have to be? So it sounds like you don't have to have a ton of experience, but you need to have, as you said, a lifelong learning. And it sounds like you might need some proof to potential employers of what you can do.
Yeah, so I would so again, my 2 cents is I don't look at it like it's so specific to marketing, right? If I want to break into sales, if I want to be an engineer,
Yeah.
if I want to be a chef, I've got to get my hands dirty.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best ways to do that, we mentioned the lifelong learning hat too, but what you're really doing is you're kind of putting together a mini portfolio, saying, hey, like I've done the certifications, I've published posts, I've put out content publicly on
Yep.
my LinkedIn profile.
Yep.
I've engaged with leaders in this field. And now instead of being this kind of unknown, now you're building up a history and a track record, if you will, of kind of what you're all about. I know we got a different part of this related to personal branding, so I'll save some of those nuggets for there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think hiring managers, again, this is agnostic to what industry you're getting there. I think sometimes they get a little bit trigger shy of unknown when they totally shouldn't be. You could have amazing people skills and be brilliant, and they'll go, wait a second, Eleanor, you don't have 5 years of this and 7 years of this. I won't go on a tangent, but that drives me crazy. It's much more like, I'm sure you've seen a million posts, hire for attitude, hire for attitude, train for skill.
Yes.
And that applies to breaking into a new marketing role as well. And in marketing itself, like, again, tech changes so quickly. There's new platforms all the time. Just because I've used a technology A, B, and C and done, used a certain framework, XYZ, doesn't mean that tomorrow that's not going to change when ultimately it will.
Yeah.
I don't think it's unbelievably hard, to break into marketing, but that's a little bit biased. It's part creative, part analytical. And we can unpack some more of that more later.
Yeah, let's dive into that. So one of the questions that we had talked about chatting about today, or like, what are the entry level marketing jobs of today? Like, how do you, if you want to break into that full-time role, what are these roles, and what do you do in those roles?
Yeah, so if you were to peruse your Indeeds, your job boards, your LinkedIn's, and just put together a Google search, the types of marketing roles you're going to see are going to be in like a couple kind of big buckets, and they vary by company based on company size. But you're going to see someone with content, so writing those blog posts in white papers and website copy. You're going to see demand gen, whose job it is to generate leads and ultimately close one business for your company. You're going to see operations, which is something that I'm doing now, where you're managing the back end. If you have a webinar or have a campaign going out the door, You need someone to help execute and report on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's roles more like corporate comms, PR,
Mm-hmm.
your internal communications. You're going to have roles there, where you're kind of doing internal employer branding as well. Obviously, some of that stuff you break down further into social, digital, or paid ads, things along those lines. But if you were to get that new role tomorrow, it would probably fall in one of those buckets.
Awesome. One of the titles that I see a lot for that, a lot of entry level folks who come to us say, hey, what is this marketing coordinator role? Where does the marketing coordinator role sit? Sometimes I see this as kind of a jack of all trades, helping across all of these different departments. So demand gen or content, or sometimes PR. And sometimes it's very much on the operations team and kind of being the right hand person to kind of pulling the data or showcasing it, or where, what are the patterns you see there as this entry level position?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, a marketing coordinator, that might vary depending on what company you're in, the size of the company, what they need done. To me, in Sammy Frymer's little brain, if I'm hiring a marketing coordinator, they're help stitching together all these marketing efforts.
Got it.
So you might have this PhD level writer talking about this super technical topic, but they've never used a piece of marketing software or project management software in their day in their life. So now you're the coordinator. You're going to go, okay, I'm going to take this white paper, this research paper, and I'm going to break up snippets into quotes. And now we have our new Facebook post for tomorrow.
Cool.
So they kind of have sometimes a broader view and can bring different components of marketing together. If we want to use an example like live events, which yes, they're coming back, a coordinator can help ship out those promos ahead of the sales team, or a group of executives that are going to man that booth. So there's a lot of support work in there as well. But don't use that label too broadly, because a lot of this work is extremely important. Like without the coordinator, some of these logistics won't happen.
Yeah.
There's only so many hours in the day, and it's actually really good going with our case team, where if you're coordinating across different functions, now you can start to get a feel for what goes on in that graphic design project. Well, now I'm talking to the creative director, and they can share some good insights.
Got it. Okay, so to recap, because there's a lot of good nuggets there. So marketing coordinator, one of these kind of entry level roles, and it's kind of like the logistics arm. And you might hear the word support over and over again in the job description, but don't anchor too heavily on that, because it really is seeing and kind of the connecting the dots between the different departments, and ensuring that whether it's in a live event or ads kind of get off the ground when they should. Gotcha.
Yeah, there's I can remember a specific example. There was someone, there's a marketing technology company in the Boston area called Drift, and they do kind of like those chat bots that you see on websites. And I can remember I visited their office, and they had a marketing coordinator that basically kind of ran the front area and some other logistics. That person is still there today, and they're like a senior content person, because they stuck with it. They got introduced to all these different marketing functions. They were learning as they go. They had their student cap on. They were tenacious, and that marketing coordinator type role blossomed into the rest of their marketing career to this day.
Cool.
So it's a testing ground.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so that's a really interesting career path, and I'm glad you highlighted that. Like with that marketing coordinator, it's not clear. It's not that there's any one set path. It gives you an opening to these different types of marketing careers. So switching gears again. So we had talked about entry level roles with marketing coordinator as an example. Another thing we talked about is, one of the trends that I'm seeing in marketing is, to your point, like, oh, we want 3 years of experience or 5 years experience, or we want someone who has experience working with a specific thing. And, but, I often see lots of roles for freelance, for example. Um, how, what is the expectation today when you're hiring, you're talking to buddies who are hiring? How much of this is, oh, we're not going to hire someone with no marketing experience, they have to have freelance. One of the questions that we've talked about is like, where have the entry level marketing jobs gone? Is it all freelance today?
Yeah, so that's a great question. From what I see from my little perch, certainly, like if last year you had a role that no longer exists, that now you're purely outsourcing the freelancing, that's minus one role, minus one headcount for that company. I don't think there's like a mass exodus of roles, like where it's just being ported to freelance. I do think with the invention of these awesome platforms, um, there's more accessibility to a freelance project. To me, like when I'm looking at full-time versus freelance, um, I'm looking at, hey, is this a one-off project or can I afford it?
Yeah.
Because if I can afford a full-time person, like, hey, sometimes I lean in that direction.
Great.
My buddies, who are marketing leaders, really have both, because there's needs for both. If I'm focusing on this one like little area and I need some third-party content, or I need someone to help me manage, I've got a social empire and I need someone to help manage that, then I'm going freelance route or maybe an agency route.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's room for both. But yeah, I think that what mix you have kind of can change pretty frequently.
Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. So it really seems like it's based on the needs of the company at the time, but more specific ones. Oh, excuse me. Seems like I'm losing my voice today. More specific ones, you might be more of a freelancer, but if you can get the long term, or if you have the budget, then you go for full time. And do you see patterns? You mentioned kind of PR, communications, demand gen, content, operations. Are there certain roles that are more likely to be full time and certain roles that are likely to be freelance for a very long time until the company is quite large?
Yeah, I think, so for specifically for content creation or maybe something like graphic design, more likely to get one-off on in a freelancer role. Um, you still need enough structure like full-timers to bring all these campaigns together,
Yeah.
and all these analytics together. If you have, let's say you got a leaning, like scrappy marketing team, and no one, like you have expertise in events, you have expertise in writing, but again, no one knows the tech to bring on together. You could bring on a freelancer who's an absolute crusher.
Yeah.
That will help you kind of get your instance off the ground. Um, Website, building a website is a classic example, right? Like no one in your entire company knows how to code a website. It's certainly easier today, but that might be an example where you bring on someone that can do it pretty quickly, for the right price. Not, you're not looking for clearance. You're not perusing. I don't even know how to articulate it. Like you're looking for someone that has the expertise that fits your budget, that can deliver it for you, but also like you're not looking for a full-time web designer.
Got it.
You're just because you're a 5-person company or a 20-person company.
Got it. Cool. Okay. So yeah, so it seems like there's a lot of diversity and it's really a kind of company by company decision. One of the things that we had talked about discussing was, and you touched upon it a little bit earlier, right? Instead of getting intimidated by years of experience, you said, lean into your experience or hire for attitude. When you're looking at hiring a marketing person on your team, What are the types of stories or accomplishments that you look for on their resume or in their interview to say, yeah, I can hire this person. This is what I need to be seeing in order to say, yeah, they've got the right attitude, they've got the right potential.
Yeah, for sure. So if I'm sitting across the desk, physical or virtual, I'm looking for someone that's curious. I'm I'm looking for someone that's going to be adaptable in marketing, strategy, tactics. The tech stack changes frequently and rapidly. So I don't necessarily need someone that has 20 years of experience, with this one thing. I'm looking towards the future. I'm going, this person curious, were they taking modern certifications? Were they jumping on webinars so they have a current toolkit to work with? I'm looking for someone that's analytical.
Mhm.
Marketing can get a bad rap sometimes for being too much fluff,
Mhm.
for kind of being an arts and crafts store in the corporate world. So if you got someone that can kind of cut through that with data, right?
Yeah.
And say, hey, wait a second, like we got this conversion rate, a certain amount of those new leads turned into sales because of direct, things directly tied to marketing efforts. That's a win for the company's bottom line. That's a conversation the CEO understands.
Mhm. Mhm.
But now you've moved just beyond your kind of marketing sandbox, and now you're talking about efforts that are having major impacts on the company's operations.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually one of the things that we really push on for other roles at JobStep, where we really push our clients to emphasize the business impact of what they've done, no matter what role you're in, whether it's customer support, customer success, sales, not just thinking about, what did you do to day, but how did you move the needle for the company? Why did you do what you were doing? Why were you given those responsibilities for what you were doing?
Yeah, those other departments, they'll if you talk about your pipeline or getting more leads, like those are conversations they understand.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think someone that's kind of naturally curious, analytical, tenacious,
Yeah.
someone that's spent time just trying to learn their craft. It's not about the exact number of degrees you have or what
Yeah.
companies you work for. I could go on a 3-hour tangent on these companies requiring advanced degrees. Um, it's much more about those other elements, because those as things play out, those are what's going to make a difference
Yeah.
in your
So
marketing department.
how does someone prove to you or another marketing leader that they are tenacious or that they're curious, right? Like let's talk about the resume, for example. What is it that you look for in the resume um, that proves, or maybe it's a portfolio or whatever it is, before you've met them, before you decide to bring them in for an interview? What do you need to see so that you say, yeah, I think this person has those attitudes? So you said curiosity, they're tenacious, they are analytical, right? So what do we need, what do those job seekers need to make sure that they showcase to prove those characteristics?
Yeah, so when you're blending those elements together, and you're by the way on the resume showing accomplishments, not just responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I kind of like this formula. I did X by doing Y as measured by Z, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spell out the accomplishment. Someone that's tenacious, and someone that's curious and sometimes creative will be able to tell that story. So if I'm reading their resume and I see this spelled out, this accomplishment spelled out, that to me is a good signal to say, hey, like there's some real teeth to this.
Yep.
The other thing that does is, if you happen to be going for a super competitive position and you say, I increased sales by 1 million, the person on the other end might go, great, how'd you do it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I got 5 other candidates that said the same thing.
Yeah.
But if you're able to tell that story and say, hey, like, here's what I did, I tried these things, 3 things first, they all bombed. So I went back to the drawing board. I refreshed my skill set. I talked to the thought leader who's already doing an amazing job, and I got some good nuggets, and then I applied them. here were the results. Now I'm probably tenacious too.
Right.
Those are good signals.
Absolutely. So I love that formula. It's pretty similar to the ones that we coach our JobStep coaches to use. So you say, I did X by doing Y with this result.
Yeah, as measured by Z.
As measured by Z. I did X by doing Y as measured by Z. I love that. We often may flip it. We'll say we accomplished, so we accomplished this measurement by doing X and Y. Yep. But that's, yeah, I think it's right. You show the tenacity, you show the outcomes by really giving a hiring manager those numbers.
And I'll give one bonus to this.
Yeah.
That made me think of like, when we're talking about these accomplishments, you can also see that play out. And I know we haven't touched on as much on personal branding yet.
Yeah.
But I think one trend I'm seeing is over the long term, companies or recruiters or hiring managers are literally going to say, show me, like, if we're talking about, so what's your style? Like, how do you engage with someone? Well, in a conversation, that can be tricky to really show.
Yeah.
But if you have the last 3 months of people's daily chats on LinkedIn where you totally chimed in, now the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah.
Now it's almost like the text version, or the psychology version of like saying, if I go, hey, I'm an awesome artist, and they go, great, let me show you, like, what have you done over the last 90 days, in your portfolio?
Right.
And now like now you can the dots connect because you're talking about the same thing because you can literally see it.
Yeah, I think that's a great transition to personal brand. Let's dig in. So what is personal brand and why is it important?
Yeah, so the old word for it was reputation. It's what people remember about you, right? And I think it's important because it follows you from company to company, right? So like when you have your LinkedIn profile, when you switch jobs tomorrow or industries tomorrow, or you're a lifelong scientist and you start your marketing coordinator role tomorrow, like all those great things you did or qualities about you follow you. So it's something that you build up kind of with consistency. It's important because it can kind of make or break some of your opportunities.
Yeah.
Like, I put up a post recently about when I was leaving Vegas. It was my last night there, and I saw like this awesome customer service person at the front get like chewed out, right?
Oh no.
So like it's sunk my heart. So I'm like, well, if I happen to get that person, like I'm gonna do the exact opposite. I'm gonna be extra nice. I'm gonna try. My humor's not great, but I'm gonna try to crack jokes. I'm just gonna sprinkle extra kindness. If luck would have it, I happen to get that in the long front desk. I happen to get that exact person. And I know it's a long-winded answer, but I think it demonstrates reputation really well. So long story short, ended up having an awesome experience, got upgraded to like this massive suite for free. And that was more than a decade ago. And I still remember that person's, not that person's, but like the reputation, like from that company, from that specific interaction. And that was only like this couple-minute thing. And to this day, now they have a fan. And if that was a negative experience, or if that person left a bad taste in my mouth or created a terrible reputation, the reverse would also be true. Like I would go out of my way not to recommend this person or this company or this business, etc. So like with your reputation, your personal brand, it's greater. Like that follows you, Eleanor.
Yeah.
And again, there's a million and one quotes out there, but it's I think there's like a Warren Buffett one in there. Like it takes a lifetime to build and a second to ruin. And we see that play out on the media all the time. And I think the other place where it's important is you're trying to get that first marketing coordinator job, and you don't necessarily have lots of marketing experience, but you have an awesome reputation. Hey, Jill, I'm thinking about hiring Eleanor. What's the scoop? Like, what's her work ethic? What's her personality really like? You have a stellar reputation. Ding, 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 ding. You know, that conversation's moving forward.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I think so there's a lot of good pieces of advice there. So one is, you never know which of your interactions are going to make your reputation, whether it's with potential clients or potential employer, or reference. It sounds like references are really key. If you get to that final round interview and, maybe the employer is on the fence, but they can call up your reference and your reference is going to be really, really enthusiastic about your work ethic and who you are. That will be really important. So you mentioned, the Warren Buffett quote of it, it takes a lifetime to build and a minute or a second to lose. What, there are so many people who take time before they figure out what they want their career to be, right? Their first couple of years out of school, or they just decided, they didn't want to go to college. They might do a job that, it was just a job, not a career. And then they finally figured out, okay, I want to break into a new career. What would you say to those folks who either, their personal brand is definitely not online, and also, they evolved as a person? How does this factor into, how would you recommend that kind of person develop their personal brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sometimes I think about, like, what would I tell, that those threads of, like, what would you tell your 16-year-old self?
Yeah,
If you could, wave the magic wand and just, like, time travel back. I would say, hey, Sam, I am, or Sam, you are, you got a taste. You like, personal brands, all these kind of little experiences and projects weave together that build up your brand, your reputation over time. You got a taste. If your personal brand is going to leave an impression on someone else, at some point you're going to have to pull the trigger and post something publicly. Like, if I'm in my room with my portfolio or with my thoughts about, breaking to a marketing career or art or cooking or launching rockets, right? At some point, like, if that's going to impact my career or my success, that has to be shared with the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And one caveat or asterisk that I would put next to that is, don't be afraid to fail or look like an idiot. It's funny, when I read books now, there's feedback on psychology, like presentations, where people say, I actually thought it was even more honest when it wasn't so fine-tuned, where people just upfront said, hey, like, there's certain parts of this that we're good at, but there's other parts of this where we completely suck. And you can almost visually see the gates start to drop. They're like, yeah, this person's just telling me straight up how, like, what they're all about. And that makes me trust them more.
Mm-hmm.
Versus something that's too slick and it's like, is this too rehearsed, or what are they really like? What are they,
Right.
they're really all about with their
Right.
personal brand?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say you got to taste and test. You got to go publicly. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to engage. This isn't like a introvert versus extrovert conversation. It's just like, if there's whatever topic lights your soul on fire, go towards that topic and engage with others, and have that be your kind of your career calling at that time.
Awesome. I think you've had so many good points, so many good pieces of advice for people, but I think this one is hard, right? If you never thought about your personal brand, you've never thought about building your reputation, you're just starting out in a new aspirational career. You might have had a career before, maybe you've or maybe you just have jobs, but I think there's a lot of fear of getting it right or not getting it right. And a lot of fear of like, well, if it's not perfect, then my personal brand is over. But I love what you said. Don't be afraid to fail. And, the elements of the personal brand that you've been talking about are like how you treat other people, your tenacity, your curiosity, your analyticalness, right? And not necessarily did you succeed or fail, but, it's kind of both those inputs and kind of seeing someone's evolution, right? Like how do those things fit together?
So Simon Sinek made a great point about there's hard skills and human skills, right?
Yeah.
So how that relates to, for me, how that relates to a personal brand is, yes, there's technical things that you can show or project bombs, yes, but it's also about that whole soft side as well, like what, the relationships you developed in your previous industry, your last company or at school, or that nonprofit project that you were working on last month. Those all bake into your personal brand. So it's not always, to me, strictly quantitative, cut and dry. Here's your metrics, or here's how like you executed like this thing. It's how did you treat someone? That person at the real hotel left a lifelong positive impression on me because of how they acted.
Yeah.
So it's not always, I don't think it's not always like these things that fit nicely in the box. Your personal brand can have these softer gray areas
Mhm.
that bake into it as well.
Yeah. I love that. So your personal brand is, as Simon Sinek says, it's your hard skills and your soft skills. And the soft skills are how you treat other people, how you interact, how you promote yourself, kind of these other things of like the meta of getting your skills across.
I'll tell you, and I'm not sure why I just thought of this, but I'll give you an example. When I'm watching a nice YouTube video of a favorite channel or influencer, whatever,
Yeah.
I have more respect for the ones that when things don't go well, a project that they're working on or a contract they were hired for, whatever that is, and they're upfront, they're like, hey, didn't turn out so great. Here's what I learned from it.
Love that.
That makes me want to follow them even more versus what we're so used to seeing highly curated, hand-picked, ultra glossy, never can do a thing wrong in your entire life. Right. Which immediately makes me skeptical, like what's really going on? Yeah, tell it like it is. I think that helps your personal brand. And when that project bombs, which it will, people like that's only a quick snapshot in time. But if you treat someone really well with kindness, or you show that you're really tenacious and you're learning from that mistake, now you've built that stronger relationship. Which again, hard skills and human skills all weave together.
Yeah. So this might be the moment that we pull in TikTok resumes. So you mentioned, following people on different blogs and TikToks and posts and so forth and videos, and and following people when they fail, especially when they fail, because it's more honest. We talked earlier that, in a resume for when you're looking at a marketing person, you're looking at, you said, you did X by doing Y as measured by Z, right? And that shows tenacity, it shows your outcomes, it shows your business impact. It sounds like TikTok is another way where you could show some more of your personal brand. Can you also show this kind of accomplishment and impact? What are your thoughts on these TikTok resumes, or just kind of using TikTok or some of these other platforms as your portfolio as a marketing person?
Yeah, so I would say it's not as much a replacement, it's more another arrow in your quiver, right? So when I'm talking to someone about your more traditional resume, the way I describe it is it's a highlight reel, right? So it's not meant just the way that the text in a resume, it's not meant to be a running record of every single last task you've done over 15 years or 3 years or 30 years, right? It's more, hey, like, here are some big accomplishments. Here's what I was really responsible for. And, here are the results of what during my time with XYZ Corp, right? So when you have a 1 minute long video clip, that's now your kind of video highlight reel of a piece of your portfolio, that TikTok resume kind of represents like a prequel to your usual job search, or like next steps in your job search process. So you might post that video, and now a recruiter sees it, and now they're like, hey, Eleanor, I'd like to schedule 30 minutes on your calendar.
Right.
Like, to go through the more traditional things of what you're looking for. Certainly an awesome opportunity to get creative. I can remember, it's almost the slightly longer version than a minute, but I can remember when someone got a job at VaynerMedia by creating like this almost kind of like mini rap video of the resume. Cool. And they like made it really cool, and like they made it about like their skill set, or like why they're interested in the job, and like what their passions are. And they put together like this cool video, and like Gary saw it, and he was like, we got to talk to this person. We have to. And they ended up getting the job. I think it's TikTok resumes or video resumes, that it's open season for people that want to get creative. And hey, maybe everybody doesn't like writing spelling out everything out. Maybe especially for certain types of roles that are more creative in nature, if they happen to be terrible, in this little area over here, but like they have some funky ideas that they can put into a video, I think that's great if that means, hey, now they get seen where otherwise they wouldn't.
Yeah, I like that. So it's thinking of, in addition to your resume, your portfolio, video resumes, TikTok resumes, other things that you do, it's a prequel. It's another way to get seen. It's another way to kind of widen your chances of interacting with the right kind of people, or right types of employers who are excited about what you're doing.
Right. So if I'm a recruiter or hiring manager and I'm on TikTok or this other site that now has like a port into like videos, like it's now like another panel, that goes replaces or goes next to your resume or your application. Yeah, like now you could use those creative chops in get seen. Hey, more power to you. If you want to, if you're brave enough to get on video, which we talked about before, don't be afraid to fail. Just put yourself out there. It shows. Actually, it's funny. I was reading a marketing book that I was talking about. It shows like that you're learning. It shows that you're not perfect, but you're putting in the work to go, and you got enough faith in yourself, or you just not afraid to put yourself out there, even when you're really scared. It shows you got a bit of courage too.
I love that. Yeah, I think this is where a lot of job seekers get nervous, right? I think as right, our work culture has changed, where we don't need to be perfect. Right? You said like we've moved away from the glossy Mad Men kind of commercials, and now we have kind of more of these authentic, like real conversations, real videos. But I think it also, like, that's change, as you mentioned, is also affecting what kind of candidates we hire, right? It's no longer a perfectly polished folks. It's, as you said, are you curious? Are you tenacious? Will you keep going even when you fail the first time? How do you treat one another? Or what kind of team member are you? And kind of, and giving people space for that evolution. A lot of job seekers will often come to me and say, oh, no, like I haven't done anything. I haven't had that kind of impact. I haven't had that opportunity. And so, no, but here, like, let's dig into those nuggets where you have shown, as you said, tenacity or curiosity, or you've taken initiative, you tried something. And it's okay if you didn't succeed, but employers want to see, and we want to see, and we want to celebrate, that you tried and you're on a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And that made me think of two things, if I can remember them, to unpack. One is when you're publicly displaying like these oopsies, that gives people a reason to root for you, right? It shows, hey, Eleanor's like, she's learning, she's putting herself out there. Like now I want her to succeed. I want her to go straight to the moon with success, right? Um, the other thing too, and I thought someone made a really interesting point on LinkedIn about this, is that if you're looking at a role and you're looking at the requirements and you have 100% of the requirements, what are you learning on day one?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, how much are you growing when you come in fully stocked?
Mm-hmm.
My Sammy Frymer spin on that would be you probably wouldn't be learning as much as if you came in with 70% the requirements.
Correct.
Now you're going, okay, like I can hit the ground running, like some of the stuff I've executed before, but there's also this chunk over here where I want to grow, I want to keep growing my career. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I want to, I'm a marketing coordinator today, or I'm doing freelancer marketing projects today, and I want to pick up B, C, and D over here so I can help grow my career, grow my success. I
Absolutely.
think that's a bit more exciting too, where you're getting all that fresh info versus I've seen it all. I've done everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I can tell you from the JobStep data side of things, at this point, we've now applied to, I think, over 10,000 jobs for our job seekers. And when we have a filter where we're looking to see, does this person have about 70 to 70%? And we can say, yes, you can still get interviews when you apply to jobs when you only have 70% or less of the requirements, and you can still get offers when you have 70%, because oftentimes employers, as you said, they're looking for that potential. They're looking for someone who's going to be excited about this role, who's going to grow in this role. And oftentimes, one of the other things I say is, if you have 100% of requirements, you are probably overqualified. You probably should go to the next level up.
Exactly. It's funny. The craziest, most viral post I ever had was, it's fictitious. It's meant to be funny. Job description for a junior marketing coordinator, and I put in there you need 20 years of coding experience and 20 years of HubSpot, 20 years of 15 years of Marketo. You need to have successfully written 3 Disney languages. Your on-site test is going to be, done over 6 days in 3 different random languages. Must have practiced marketing on 5 different continents, just to be considered for this junior marketing specialist role. And the craziest thing happened with that, Eleanor. When I was reading the comments, you would see trends or themes of people had to read like 2/3 of it before they realized it was a joke.
Yeah.
Like, we've been so conditioned that for in terms of job requirements to expect you to have these crazy experience or degrees or 100% of the skills, that like people really had to read it being like, oh yeah, like that's meant to be funny. But
Yes.
the thought, to me, I think it's crazy. The thought that even for a millisecond, people would take that seriously. It's like, whoa, like what are we doing here?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think
Big
that's
pause.
why they need allies like you and like our team at JobStep to say, this is crazy. Employers, let's put a check on you, and let's start advocating and helping job seekers see, yeah, you are qualified, even if this employer does not know how to write a good job description. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Cool. So we are at time. As usual, we love, every time I talk to you, we go long because there's so much to say. Thank you, Sam, for this time. I'm gonna quickly just share my screen with a couple resources if people want to follow Sam or follow JobStep for more information. So let me just pull that up. And great. So if you want to follow JobStep, you can follow us at www.jobstep.co or at any of our social media handles. We're not yet on TikTok, but I think this conversation will finally inspire us to do so. Um, and then if you want to follow Sam, Sam's really active on LinkedIn. He's got tons of nuggets of advice peppered throughout his LinkedIn, and often does really fun polls you can constantly learn from him. And you can we've had his email there, and we've hoped you have enjoyed learning from Sam. I certainly have. I always do. And good luck with your job search, and we're rooting for you.
Definitely appreciate it, Eleanor. We always have spirited conversation,
Definitely.
and I like the theme here where we're trying to fight for the good guys. We're trying to change the narrative here and make a job search experience better, and make those proverbial win-wins and do something good over here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Hey, have an excellent one, Eleanor.
You too.